The Cleveland Browns have not won a playoff game since January 1st, 1995. They have not been in a playoff game since January 5th, 2003. At least one of those things will change on January 10th, 2021, when they travel to Heinz Field to take on the Steelers. Welcome to the Good Old Football Podcast. I am Matt Edwards. We're going to talk Browns, Steelers. We're going to talk some Ravens, Titans, and of course, those Cincinnati Bengals deciding to keep their head coach. But we will start with the Sunday Night Football primetime game. Pittsburgh taking on Cleveland at Heinz Field. And when you look at where Pittsburgh's been, and when you look at over the past 2 decades where Cleveland's been, it's kind of unreal that one of these two teams is going to win a playoff. The Steelers, just because of the last few weeks, they're limping into this game. I mean, 14 days ago from when I'm recording this, 14 days ago, less than 3 weeks from when they will play this wildcard game, they lost to the Bengals with Ryan Finley starting at quarterback. And now I'm supposed to expect Big Ben just to magically snap out of it and all of a sudden be in good shape. And I'm not saying they can't win, because they certainly can, but it's all going to come down to him. Pittsburgh is just literally limping in. Well, maybe not literally, because the many important pieces are not going to be able to make it at all. Half their defense is hurt. It's been well documented. They have been banged up. Injuries sometimes can be an excuse for the Steelers. Injuries could really be a reason this year. They've got so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And then you look at the Browns. They're just the Browns. I mean, for years, for as long as I can remember, I read the stats at the top, they haven't won a game since I was 5 years old. I've got gray hair and a beard now. They haven't been in one since 2003. George Bush, he was president. You get the point. It's been a long time. It's been a very long time. He was in his first administration. We'll say that. Was he getting, he would have been getting ready to take the second? No, because of the 2004 election. Who cares? It's been a long time. 17 seasons in which they did not make the postseason. And I think my friend Tim Mello pointed out it was something like 15 of those seasons or 16 of those seasons, whatever. Going into week 17, they didn't even have a shot. So often with the Browns, the season was over by Thanksgiving. So the fact that they made it in, and God did they make it interesting, is incredible. And now one of these two teams, either the Browns, who haven't won a game since 1995 in the postseason, or the Steelers, who lost to Washington, lost to Cincinnati, needed everything they had to beat the Colts. One of those two teams is going to win a playoff game. And listen to this too, as bad as the last few weeks have been for Pittsburgh, really the last decade, they've not been maybe as successful as we think by their standards. I had a lot of fun looking this up. Since 2010, they had that trip to the Super Bowl in 2010 where they lost to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Since then, they are 3-5 in the postseason. Of course, that's not terrible. 3 playoff wins is more than several teams have had in that span, right? But here's the quarterbacks they've beat. Alex Smith, not bad. Other than that, Matt Moore and A.J. McCarron. The quarterbacks to beat them include Tim Tebow, Joe Flacco, and most recently one Blake Bortles. Yes, the same Blake Bortles who was on the Denver Broncos practice squad a couple months ago. He is actually the last quarterback the Steelers have faced and lost to in the playoffs. The two to beat them with a little bit better resumes would be Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. But since that 2010 trip to the Super Bowl, it's been rough sailing in the Steel City when it comes to the postseason. And if you don't think there's pressure on Mike Tomlin to win this game, you don't follow the Steelers too well. This fan base will go bananas if they lose to the Browns at home in the postseason with Ben Roethlisberger playing, with a pretty good receiving core, with a better-than-average running back in James Conner. I don't care how many injuries there are. You still have Cam Hayward. You still have T.J. Watt. You still are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to have the Cleveland Browns come into that stadium and win, the city would light itself on fire. Mike Tomlin wouldn't lose his job, no. I don't know that I don't know what it would take for that to happen. That's a different discussion for a different time. But people would go insane if the Cleveland Browns, with a first-year head coach and a cocky little quarterback and their top receiver out, although I'll take Jarvis Landry number one, if that team comes in there and beats them on their home turf, Pittsburgh will melt. And it can happen. Again, like I said, it depends on which Ben Roethlisberger we see. October Ben Roethlisberger, I think the Steelers are going to win. But December Ben Roethlisberger, Cleveland's going to have a real shot. And that would cause some chaos in Pittsburgh. I don't know what. I don't know what it would mean. It would depend on how bad the loss was, who was good, who was bad, and what kind of crazy things Mike Tomlin did in the process to get there. But there's so much riding. I mean, this is one of those games that could really kind of project either franchise in a certain direction for years to come. And I'm very glad it's on Sunday Night Football. Glad the Browns and Steelers get that time slot, although we got to wait a little longer. Whatever. After the most interesting game for me, after the Bengals got stuck in that 1 o'clock Saturday slot against the Texans for 9 years in a row. It was not that many. I wish it was 9 years in a row. It's nice to see the AFC North teams get a little bit of love on the Sunday night game. But I think Cleveland, if December Ben shows up, Cleveland's got a real shot to win. Is December Ben all that much better than Mason Rudolph, who we saw on Sunday? By the way, if Cleveland does win, they likely would go to Arrowhead and lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, so that's always nice. And here's another thing regarding that. So the Steelers haven't been to the playoffs since the 2017 season. That's another thing. They've missed in back-to-back years. Obviously, last year, Ben got injured. But what if, I think right now, everyone seems to think Ben Roethlisberger is going downhill. Can you imagine if his last postseason game at Heinz Field is losing to the Browns, who haven't won a playoff game since Ben Roethlisberger was like 9 years old? Probably older than 9. You get the point. This is a big game for legacies for both franchises and which path they take. I don't have a prediction for the game. I don't know that anyone would care if I did have a prediction. What I do think, it's going to be low scoring, and one of the two quarterbacks, I don't know if it's going to be Baker Mayfield, I don't know if it's going to be Big Ben. Someone's going to make a mistake, a big mistake. Whoever avoids that mistake, their team will win. I feel like it's going to be like a 20-16 game, maybe like 23-17, somewhere in there. Someone's going to throw a pick from their own 17, and that's going to be the difference. Or it's not going to be the difference because Cody Parkey will kick the ball into the sideline. I'm worried about that guy. I wish him well. I wish him very well. I'll tell you what, too, Sunday, and look, I know that Cam Hayward wasn't out there, TJ Watt wasn't out there, but it made me a lot more confident in Baker Mayfield. Those Heisman House commercials coming true. I was looking for Desmond Howard just to be around the corner, or is it Charles Woodson? One of those Michigan guys. I was looking for one of them to be around the corner, getting in his eyes, getting in his ears, getting in his mind. Baker looked good down the stretch. When he needed to make plays, he went and he made plays. One more thing I wanted to touch on when it comes to Cleveland. I had two friends, one of whom has been on the podcast, Jed DeMusi. I don't think he'll mind me saying this. The other is my friend Shaq, a former basketball player some of you guys are aware of. I had two of them text me before the game Sunday and basically say, and maybe they were doing this mentally to protect themselves, but they both said, and I think they both meant it, they didn't really care if the Browns won the game. They were good with the season they had, 10-6 with a first-year head coach. They were fine with that. It was progress. I was befuddled by this. And look, that's not the only, there are certainly, I know more people who care far more. But for the two people who texted me, who I know have not missed a Browns game in their lives that I know of, or at least not for an emergency situation, they were like, yeah, I'm good with the progress. You got to keep raising the bar, folks. You got to keep the pressure on, Jimmy Haslam and company. It's like a business. You keep pushing, you keep pushing. In year one, this is huge. This raises the bar for the franchise. It's like a business. You keep trying to get better and building on that. And I mentioned this several times on this show. You have to learn to win in the playoffs. And Sean McVay talked about this. His first season, I believe their first season, they won the NFC West. Atlanta, who was a wild card and they kind of like backed into the playoffs, went out there and beat them. We saw this last year with Buffalo. It looked like Buffalo was finally going to win. Couldn't close it out. I'm sure there are tons of other examples. And players talk about this too. You have to learn how to handle the postseason. Some players we see don't get there. Lamar Jackson Not there yet. Maybe he'll get there Sunday. More on that coming up. Peyton Manning, took him a while in the postseason to really get it together. He would dominate the regular season, get to the playoffs. Wasn't bad, but he wasn't regular season Peyton Manning. This is such an important... Now, if the Browns lose this game, great season. 11-5, made it there, and you've got something to really, really build on. But I think it's so important, and I know this because players and coaches talk about it. The postseason is a different animal. You've got to learn how to handle it. Browns fans, come on, man. If you're one of those people who was saying, "Oh, I'm good with old 10-6," no, raise it up, demand more. It's America. Speaking of demanding more, that is not something every team in Ohio is necessarily into. Zac Taylor is staying put as the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. No real surprise here, that the 2-game win streak he had. The Monday night game, look, it's good. I'm glad he won those 2 games. The Bengals dropped a couple of draft picks, as I said last week. If that's your main priority, Doug Peterson, you're a nerd. Build the culture. Who cares about... I mean, of course you care, but that shouldn't be the priority. Look at the teams who are always drafting top 5. How are things going for them? Look at the teams who focus on winning and building a culture. Going a little better there, right? Anyway, Zac Taylor staying in Cincinnati, 5-26-1 over his first 2 seasons. Let me read just a bit of the statement that Bengals owner Mike Brown put out on Monday morning. So this is Mike Brown. He says, "Our fans wanted a fresh direction 2 years ago, and that's what we did in hiring a bright, energetic head coach in Zac Taylor." Okay, this is where many people, myself included, have the issue. So the fans, that's the first thing. Our fans wanted a fresh new direction. Are the fans running the show in Cincinnati? Is this Green Bay? Do we have shareholders down there? Is that what's going on, Mike? And by the way, have you seen the fans? They are shirtless and puking in the parking lot. I don't think that's who you should be leaving things up to. I can't decide if he's trying to be nice and include the fans or if he's just trying to say, well, this is what you guys wanted. Either way, that's not what a billionaire boss and an owner of an NFL team should be doing. You should take the bull by the horns and be confident in yourself and say, I'm the guy. I'm the son of arguably the most historic figure in football coaching history. I make the rules. But you're not. You're saying, well, this is what the fans wanted. You got to be... Enough of that. That's a cop-out. That is lazy. Let me continue. The second paragraph begins like this. "This season, we face challenges with injuries at key positions and missed opportunities." Yeah, your whole roster has been injured for 3 years. I would say that will cause some missed opportunities. Many of us have been wondering, this is just me now, by the way, what's going on with the training staff? Because Trey Hopkins, starting center, one of the few good guys left out there on the field, tore his ACL Sunday. Jonah Williams, probably your only other good offensive lineman, he's hurt too for a second year in a row. We know what happened to Joe Burrow. That was a result of not going after the offensive line. We'll have more on that in a minute. But everyone's hurt all the time. It's not a this year thing. I mean, is your training staff just unpaid interns from a community college? What is going on? It's been going on for 3 years, and people put things out like this, just acting like challenges with injuries. At some point, it's no longer bad luck. At some point, and I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor. I know that we live in a time where everyone thinks they have medical answers. I'm not one of those people. What's going on that the Bengals are constantly hurt? And then what else does he say? He does say, "I am proud of our team for fighting hard through adversity." Yeah, did you watch them on Sunday? The Ravens ran for 25,000 yards. I don't know that that's necessarily fighting through adversity. They did, beat the Steelers, and that was good. That's the thing, man. I'm not really mad at the Bengals season. I said last week, I think if Joe Burrow stays uninjured, rather, they get 6 or 7 wins. And for a team that was 2-14 last year, that's not bad. But don't come out here and kind of fish for an apology from the fans, acting as if, you're not that at fault. Well, the fans wanted it. And by the way, we had a bunch of injuries. Well, we fought hard. This is a problem right here. This kind of attitude creates a culture of, oh, gee golly, we'll get him next time. Get out of here. And that's what he ends it with. The last line of the statement is, next year we will earn our stripes. Yeah, I bet you will. I bet you will, Mike. You haven't won a playoff game in 30 seasons. Are you kidding me? But next year. I mean, I keep going back to the injury issue bothers me. And even more, I said this, when they announced Zac Taylor was back, what bothers me, I don't care that Zac Taylor's back. I'm fine with that. I think it's stupid. I ripped on the Browns for years. If you're going to bring someone in, give him time to get it right. Is Zac Taylor the guy? I don't know. But I think he deserves another year. He's not really had a whole lot of a fair shot so far. And I know some people disagree with that, and that's fine. It's sports. Who cares? We're all going to die one day. See what the Bengals get me into? They get me into this mood that just, I dwindle, and I've got such a good life. I've got so many things to be thankful for, but this statement the day after a 38-3 loss drives me up a wall. Between this and last year, every person who had eyes in America knew Joe Burrow was going to get killed. So what the Bengals do? They went out and signed the Cowboys' backup guard. I mean, they just drive me crazy. You better take care of Joe Burrow. You don't know what you got right now. Maybe you do. I hope you do. I hope you do. And again, I'm good with keeping Zac Taylor. Despite the irritability I am perhaps displaying right now, I'm good with it. The offense was clicking before Burrow got hurt. They need to learn to close games out. That's a thing. I mean, I forget, it was like 5 out of 7 games. They had the lead at halftime and could not win the game. That was unsettling. But they're close. They're close. It looks like they're going to have some assistant changes, it looks like. My old colleague Elise Jesse first reported that over the week. Looks like they will get, my old colleague, I say my old co-worker, it looks like they'll get an old. They won't get an old. They might get an old. We'll see if they're old or young. They'll get a new offensive line coach. Jim Turner is reportedly out. Thank the Lord. You want to talk about failing upward when it comes to Jim Turner. The guy just bad everywhere he goes. And somehow, and look, I felt bad for Zac Taylor at the time. No one wanted to come there. The roster sucked. He was an unproven quarterbacks coach for the Rams. The Bengals don't necessarily have a sparkling reputation throughout the NFL. Hopefully the addition of Joe Burrow kind of will make some people want to go there. But I mean, that's good. That's great for the Bengals to get rid of Jim Turner. That's one of those ones where you take the small victories where you can get them. But I mean, he just was awful before. Give someone else a shot. I'm serious. I would rather them take someone with no resume than that bad of a resume that Jim Turner had. Imagine working at Burger King and every sandwich you made, you threw up against the ceiling and they kept saying, hey, quit doing that, but you just kept doing it. So you got fired from Burger King. And then you went over to McDonald's. They hired you, but you kept licking the floors, so they fired you there. And then Wendy's hired you, but you kept mixing ketchup in every single Frosty despite being told for 2 years you shouldn't do that. You get fired from those 3 jobs, and then the Bengals say, hey, come be our offensive line coach. That's Jim Turner's resume. And I wouldn't rip on him so much, but if you go Google him and look into him, he seems like a major ass. So I don't really feel bad saying all the things that I'm saying. Plus, he has a ton of money from being awful at his job. Again, it's what the Bengals do to me. This is what the Bengals do to me. They will draft 5th, by the way. If I see one more mock draft that has them taking a receiver, I will cut my feet off. I went 2-1 in my picks last week. Brings me to 28-21 on the year to round out the regular season. Not bad. Hey, by the way, I told you at the beginning of the year, Washington plus 1,600 to win the division. Good value. They did it. Hope some of you capitalized on that. I'm sure I got far more things than that wrong. I know I did. I'm still holding out on my Rams Super Bowl pick, although it doesn't look like Jared Goff will play. We will see. Anyways, 28-21 during the regular season. Above 500, you always take that, but I was 23-11 at one point, so I end on a 5-10 run, which is rough. The Saints -6 and the Broncos plus 2.5 won for me on Sunday. I had the Titans -7. They did not get it done for me, and I mean, If you're Houston, at least go win the game and bump the Bengals up to the 4th spot. But no, you just have to keep them at 5 and not help me win money. I'm only going to give you 2 games this week, and then I don't know what I'll do after that. We'll figure it out. Here's the 2 games I really like. I have talked myself into both of these, and I'll tell you why. The first one, a little bit of drum roll. We're going to stick with Washington. Washington +8 versus Tom Brady and the Bucs. I told you all week, or they've been told all week, rather, that they are going to get blown out. Washington, since before yesterday's game, whoever wins the NFC East, the Bucs are going to kill. These are grown men NFL players. They're pretty good. They're being told they shouldn't be in the playoffs. They're being told they're going to get killed at home. That is going to bother these guys. They are going to come in with their heads on fire. By the way, what's the one thing that young Thomas Brady has struggled with in the playoffs? A pass rush. Washington has one. Chase Young is a polar bear in a football uniform. Montez Sweat is excellent. I think the Bucs eke out a win. It'll be like 30-27, but give me the football team and the points. I'll take Washington +8. And my second pick, I'm terrified of this one because it almost seems too easy, and when it's too easy, that means Vegas knows something. But I'm going with it. I'm taking the Bills -7. I'm going to swallow the touchdown. They're the hottest team in football. There's a high of 30 degrees on Saturday in Buffalo. Phillip Rivers is 49 years old, and his track record in outdoor games is not great in January. He's not really 49. I should have went with an absurd age where I was just kidding. I don't know how old he is, 30-something. Bills -7. I'll go with that one as well. So that's what I like this week. Washington +8, Bills -7. I am so pumped to watch all those games this weekend. The Super Wild Card weekend, the NFL is trying to get people to call it. That seems to be going very, very well for them. Okay, there's going to be a lot of breaking news coming up. Reportedly, there was a private flight on Monday from Columbus, Ohio to Jacksonville, Florida. What's old Urban up to? He's got to at least go down there and listen, right? I don't think or know that he will take the job, but I obviously don't know. But you got to go listen. If a billionaire wants to fly you to Florida to hang out, of course. So we'll see what happens there. Could be interesting. And there's a report out there, too, from Jordan Strack, I believe, in Toledo, who I don't know, but is a local guy who does a really nice job from just what I've seen online over the years. He says that Jim Harbaugh is really more interested in the NFL than he is in Michigan, so we'll see what happens there as well. Of course, there were rumors over the weekend about Harbaugh signing an extension. Ohio State fans got all kinds of happy, but that has not happened up to this point. We'll see what happens. I said, can you imagine Jim Harbaugh in Houston, Urban Meyer in Jacksonville? Those two going at it twice a year, once again. Well, not once again. They've never done it, but going at it twice a year. And then you got Mike Vrabel, the former Ohio State coach and player. And it's not really a secret in Columbus. Mike Vrabel and Urban Meyer butted heads quite a bit during their time here. A couple of alphas went after it from time to time. Could be a fun division. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh, Houston, nothing has even been said there. But if you're Harbaugh and you're wanting to go to the NFL, the job featuring Deshaun Watson in Texas doesn't seem like a bad gig. So we'll see what happens. I'm probably going to do another podcast this week. Just subscribe so it'll be there if it happens, and it will happen. Good English I'm using there. All right, it's a Good Old Football Podcast. I'm at Matt Edwards on Twitter. We will see you again very, very soon.